For historians like me who spend a lot of time combing through dusty archives and library collections looking for information for videos and books, the information we seek is often incomplete, even as in the case of World War II, which ended 79 years ago due to official secrecy. I've been frustrated on several occasions to find that subjects that I have been researching are still partially classified. I recall many years ago sitting in the National Archives at Kew, going through papers concerning Japan's heinous Unit 731, as I was investigating how Allied prisoners of war, including British, American and Australian soldiers, ended up being used for human experiments at Unit 731 during the war. The problem was the United States apprehended the scientific staff from Unit 731 in 1945, and despite them being known war criminals, used them to help develop biological and chemical warfare weapons for use in the new Cold War against the Soviet Union. The files at Kew contain unedifying letters, begging letters, from British officials, desperate to convince the Americans to share the Unit 731 scientific reports with them, to aid our own bioweapons program at Porton Down in Wiltshire. The papers had been weeded, that is, embarrassing information very obviously removed before they were declassified in the National Archives, so every so often I came across a cardboard insert that stated the missing page was retained by Her Majesty's government. Obviously, the British authorities using Japanese scientific data partially derived from experiments carried out on British POWs was not something the British public would have been comfortable with. Hence many parts of the correspondence being missing or withheld. But I found enough material there and in several other archives to make a strong case in my book on the subject, The Devil's Doctors, published in 2012. In my attempts to unravel what precisely happened to Heinrich Himmler in British custody in May 1945 and his very suspicious death, I have met more official omissions and obfuscations. The National Archives says very little on Himmler's death, which is odd. I made a Freedom of Information request to the National Archives, only to be told that no files on Himmler have been retained by the government. Yet journalists have repeatedly suggested that much Himmler material is actually withheld until 2045, 100 years after his death. Who is telling the truth? We won't know. Such a long classified period normally indicates intelligence, interest in the subject, or royal interest. The same with my series on the Glucksberg heist, the final episode of which I assure you that I am working on. I had to make another Freedom of Information request to try and obtain the original Metropolitan Police investigation files on this case, but my request was denied and the files remained classified for a further 10 years. Thankfully, enough other archival material has been released to enable me to make a thorough program, but the subject remains very sensitive with the authorities, some 79 plus years after the events happened. So here are some World War II events that remain officially classified in Britain and the United States today, where only a portion of the files on these subjects have been released to the public domain. In 2037, Britons can expect the release of a mysterious cache of documents known as Box 24 at the Bodleian Library at Oxford University. In about 2000, the university declassified 10 boxes of documents that were associated with the 1936 abdication crisis, when King Edward VIII gave up the throne, allegedly for love. That doesn't have any bearing on World War II history, except for one box, number 24, that was ordered to be kept classified for a further 37 years until 2037. Why? Well, commentators have suggested that the box contains material damaging to the reputation of the royal family. More revelations of King Edward VIII's supposed negotiations with the Germans following the abdication when he was known as the Duke of Windsor, and also some damaging letters written by King George VI's wife, Queen Elizabeth, later the Queen Mother, being very rude about Wallis Simpson, and also her alleged support for a negotiated peace with Hitler at the beginning of World War II. However, don't get your hopes up. Anything damaging to the royals will probably disappear or be heavily redacted before it is ever released into the public domain. 2041 will see the British National Archives release the last of the embargoed papers it holds pertaining to the strange case of Rudolf Hess, the Nazi deputy Führer who apparently took it upon himself to fly solo to Scotland in 1941 in order to broker peace with the British government. As many of you know, I've been working on my own series about the death of Hess at Spandau Prison in Berlin in 1987, and I promise that it will appear in 2025. The documents due to be released in 2041 contain an interrogation transcript and Hess's correspondence with King George VI. Why the king was exchanging letters with Hitler's deputy might prove an interesting subject for historians, but again, I doubt whether the really juicy stuff will ever see the light of day. In 2045, supposedly 2 stashes of documents pertaining to interesting World War II events will finally be released, apart from the aforementioned Himmler files if my information is correct, 100 years after the end of the war. An appalling incident in May 1945 will also become public, when Royal Air Force fighter bombers attacked 2 German ships, including the liner Cap Arcona moored in the Baltic Sea, the RAF having been fed faulty intelligence information that the ships contained Nazi officials who were in the process of escaping to Norway or neutral Sweden. In fact, the ships contained 7,000 prisoners from Neuengamme concentration camp. Only 350 prisoners survived the attack. Though the attack was a mistake, the authorities embargoed all documents for 100 years. Another odd classification is the so-called Secret 5000, when the Royal Canadian Air Force lent Britain skilled radar technicians to help locate and destroy German U-boats and aircraft in the Atlantic. The Canadians decided that this work was so secret that all records about it were to be sealed for 100 years, and the Secret 5000 are not generally acknowledged in official histories of the Royal Canadian Air Force. The United States continues to partially classify several World War II subjects. These include parts of the Manhattan Project, which built the first atomic bombs. Some documents that have been released contain blacked-out redactions, while certain processes and/or technical details remain classified 79 years later. Such material must, presumably, still have some relevance to certain types of weapons today. Another area where some secrecy still abounds is in the area of cryptography, specifically the work done at Bletchley Park in the UK to decipher the German Enigma code to produce ultra-intelligence for the Allies, and the magic decryptions of Japanese codes by the US Navy. In both cases, not all the technical processes surrounding decryption techniques or technologies have been released due to their relevance to modern intelligence work. And finally, British and US behind-the-lines activities are still partially classified today, these being the records of Special Operations Executive in the UK and the Office of Strategic Services, the OSS, in America, presumably because of the possibility that some agents may still be living and/or the secrets of espionage tradecraft and technologies that modern intelligence organizations still use remain sensitive. This is only the tip of the iceberg. There are many aspects of World War II that remain classified in Britain and the United States today. Some of this stuff will eventually be released, some of it may partially be released, and some of it undoubtedly will never be released. Many thanks for watching. Please subscribe and share, and also visit my audiobook channel, War Stories with Mark Felton. You can also help to support both of my channels at PayPal and Patreon. Details in the description box below.